Baybars Baibars was Kipchak Turk origin, nicknamed Abu al-Futuh and Abu al-Futuhat, which means Father of Conquests, pointing to his victories, was the fourth Sultan of Egypt from the Mamluk Bahri dynasty. He was one of the commanders of the Egyptian forces that inflicted a defeat on the Seventh Crusade of King Louis IX of France. He also led the vanguard of the Egyptian army at the Battle of Ain Jalut in 1260, which marked the first substantial defeat of the Mongol army and is considered a turning point in history. The reign of Baybars marked the start of an age of Mamluk dominance in the eastern Mediterranean and solidified the durability of the military system. He managed to pave the way for the end of the Crusader presence in the Levant and reinforced the union of Egypt and Syria as the region's preeminent Muslim state, able to fend off threats from both Crusaders and Mongols, and even managed to subdue the kingdom of Makuria, which was famous for being unconquerable by previous Muslim empire invasion attempts. As Sultan, Baybars also engaged in a combination of diplomacy and military action, allowing the Mamluks of Egypt to greatly expand their empire. His name was derived from Kipchak Turkic Bay plus Bars. Early life. Baybars was born in the -He Kipchak Cumania, between the Edel and Yaiwike rivers, to the Cumans Kipchaks. He was described as fair-skinned in contrast to the swarthy skin of the native Egyptians, broad-faced with small eyes, very tall, which was typical in both Arabic and European descriptions of Turkic men, and had a cataract in one of his eyes. It was said that he was captured by the Bulgars in the Kipchak steppe Cumania and sold as a slave, ending up in Syria. Baybars was quickly sold to a Mamluk officer called Idakan al-Bondugda and sent to Egypt, where he became a bodyguard to the Ayyubid ruler as Saleh Ayyub. Rise to power. Baybars was a commander of the Mamluks under the Ayyubids. He was particularly involved in the significant victory where he led the Egyptian army at the Battle of l-Futuh, also known as Battle of Habia, east of Gaza in 1244 in the aftermath of the Sixth Crusade. In around 1250 he defeated the Seventh Crusade of Louis IX of France. He was also involved in the Battle of al-Manshura, where he employed an ingenious strategy in ordering the opening of a gate to let the Crusade knights enter the town. The Crusaders rushed into the town that they thought was deserted to find themselves trapped inside. They were besieged from all directions by the Egyptian forces and the town population, and suffered heavy losses. Robert of Artois, who took refuge in a house, and William of Salisbury were both killed, along with most of the Knights Templar. Only 5 Templar knights escaped alive. Baybars was still a commander under Sultan Qutuz at the Battle of Ain Jalut in 1260, when he decisively defeated the Mongols. After the battle, Sultan Qutuz was assassinated while on a hunting expedition. It was said that Baybars was involved in the assassination because he expected to be rewarded with the governorship of Aleppo for his military success. But Qutuz, fearing his ambition, refused to give him the post. Baybars succeeded Qutuz as Sultan of Egypt. Sultan of Egypt. Once Baybars had ascended to the Sultanate, his authority was soon confirmed without any serious resistance, except from Sinjar al-Halabi, another Mamluk emir who was popular and powerful enough to claim Damascus. Also, the threat from the Mongols was still serious enough to be considered as a threat to Baybars' authority. However, Baybars first chose to deal with Sinjar and marched on Damascus. At the same time, the princes of Hama and Homs proved able to defeat the Mongols in the First Battle of Homs, which lifted the Mongol threat for a while. On the 17th of January 1261, Baybars' forces were able to rout the troops of Sinjar outside Damascus, and pursued the attack to the city, where the citizens were loyal to Sinjar and resisted Baybars, although the resistance was soon crushed. After suppressing the revolt of Sinjar, Baybars then managed to deal with the Ayyubids, while quietly eliminating the Prince of Kerak. Ayyubids such as al-Ashraf Musa, Emir of Homs, and the Ayyubid Emir dynasty of Hama, who had earlier staved off the Mongol threat, were permitted to continue the rule in exchange for the recognizing Baybars' authority as Sultan. The next step which Baybars needed after this was religious authority, so he sought legitimation from the Caliph in Baghdad, which was sacked by Ilkhanate Mongol army earlier. So by becoming a protégé of the Caliph, he had all he needed. Campaign against the Crusaders as Sultan, Baybars engaged in a lifelong struggle against the Crusader kingdoms in Syria, in part because the Christians had aided the Mongols. He started with the Principality of Antioch, which had become a vassal state of the Mongols and had participated in attacks against Islamic targets in Damascus and Syria. In 1263, Baybars laid siege to Acre, the capital of the remnant of the Kingdom of Jerusalem. Although the siege was abandoned when he sacked Nazareth instead, he used siege engines to defeat the Crusaders in battles such as the Fall of Varsuf from March 21 to April 30. After breaking into the town, he offered free passage to the defending Knights Hospitallers if they surrendered the formidable citadel. The Knights accepted Baybars' offer but were enslaved anyway. Baybars razed the castle to the ground. He next attacked Athlith and Haifa, where he captured both towns after destroying the Crusaders' resistance, and razed the citadels. In the same year, Baybars laid siege to the fortress of Safad, held by the Templar Knights, which had been conquered by Saladin in 1188 but returned to the Kingdom of Jerusalem in 1240. Baybars promised the knights safe passage to the Christian town of Acre if they surrendered the fortress. Badly outnumbered, the knights agreed. When they left the fortress, Baybars had each and every knight beheaded, continuing a pattern of cruelty and treachery. On capturing Safed, Baybars did not raze the fortress to the ground but instead he fortified it and repaired the damage, as it was strategically situated and well constructed. He installed a new governor in Safed, with the rank of wali. Later, in 1266, Baybars invaded the Christian country of Cilicia in Armenia, which, under King Hethum I, had submitted to the Mongol Empire. After defeating the forces of Hethum I in the Battle of Bahri, Baybars managed to ravage the three great cities of Mamistra, Adana and Tarsus, so that, when Hethum arrived with Mongol troops, the country was already devastated. Hethum had to negotiate the return of his son Leo by giving control of Armenia's border fortresses to the Mamluks. In 1269, Hethum abdicated in favor of his son and became a monk, but he died a year later. Leo was left in the awkward situation of keeping Cilicia as a subject of the Mongol Empire, while at the same time he was paying tribute to the Mamluks. This isolated Antioch and Tripoli, led by Hethum's son-in-law, Prince Bohemond VI. After successfully conquering Cilicia, Baybars in 1267 settled his unfinished business with Acre, and continued the extermination of remaining Crusader garrisons in the following years. In 1268, he besieged Antioch, capturing the city on the 18th of May. Baybars had promised to spare the lives of the inhabitants, but he broke his promise and had the city razed, killing or enslaving much of the population after the surrender, prompting the fall of the Principality of Antioch. The massacre of men, women, and children at Antioch was the single greatest massacre of the entire crusading era. Priests had the throats slit inside their churches, and women were sold into slavery. Then he continued to Jaffa, which belonged to Guy, the son of John of Ibolin. Jaffa fell to Baybars on the 7th of March after 12 hours of fighting. Most of Jaffa's citizens were slain, but the garrison was allowed by Baybars to go unharmed. After this he conquered Ashkelon and Caesarea. Diplomacy with Golden Horde. In some time around October to November 1267, or about 666 Safar of Hijra year, Baybars wrote condolence and congratulation to the new Khan of the Golden Horde, Mengu Timur, to urge him to fight Abaka. Despite the failure to incite infighting between the Golden Horde and Ilkhanate, Baybars continued to conduct warm correspondence with the Golden Horde, particularly with Mengu Timur's general Nogai, who was very cooperative with relation to Baybars. Unlike Mengu Timur, it is theorized that the factor of this intimacy was not only the religious connection, but also because Nogai was not really fond of Mengu Timur. However, Baybars was pragmatic in his approach and did not want to become involved in complicated intrigue inside the Golden Horde. So instead he stayed close to both Mengu Timur and Nogai. Continued campaign against Crusaders in 1271, after Baybars captured the smaller castles in the area, including Chastel Blanc. He besieged Crac des Chevaliers Castle, held by the Hospitallers, on the 30th of March. Peasants who lived in the area had fled to the castle for safety and were kept in the outer ward. As soon as Baybars arrived, he began erecting mangonels, powerful siege weapons which he would turn on the castle. According to Ibn Shaddad, 2 days later the first line of defenses was captured by the besiegers. He was probably referring to a walled suburb outside the castle's entrance. After a lull of 10 days, the besiegers conveyed a letter to the garrison, supposedly from the headmaster of the Knights Hospitaller in Tripoli, which granted permission for them to surrender. The garrison capitulated and the Sultan spared their lives. The new owners of the castle undertook repairs, focused mainly on the outer ward. The Hospitaller chapel was converted to a mosque and 2 mihrabs were added to the interior. Baybars then turned his attention to Tripoli, but he interrupted his siege there to call a truce in May 1271. The fall of Antioch had led to the brief Ninth Crusade, led by Prince Edward of England, who arrived in Acre in May 1271 and attempted to ally himself with the Mongols against Baybars. So Baybars declared a truce with Tripoli as well as with Edward, who was never able to capture any territory from Baybars anyway. According to some reports, Baybars tried to have Edward assassinated with poison, but Edward survived the attempt and returned home in 1272. Campaign against Makuria. In 1272 the Mamluk Sultan invaded the kingdom of Makuria, after its king David I had raided the Egyptian city of Adab, initiating several decades of intervention by the Mamluks in Nubian affairs. Hostilities toward the dying Christian kingdom were sidelined as Baybars' invasion of Makuria continued for 4 years until, by 1276, Baybars had completed his conquest of Nubia, including the medieval Lower Nubia, which ruled by Banu Khans. Under the terms of settlement, the Nubians were now subjected to paying jizya tribute, and in return they were allowed to keep the religion. Being protected under Islamic law as people of the book, they were also allowed to continue being governed by a king from the native royal family. Although this king was chosen personally by Baybars, namely a Makurian noble named Shakanda, in practice this was reducing Makuria to a vassal kingdom, effectively ending cementing Makuria's status as an independent kingdom. Campaign against the Mongols. In 1277, Baybars invaded the Seljuk Sultanate of Rum, then controlled by the Ilkhanate Mongols. He defeated a Mongol army at the Battle of Elbistan and captured the city of Kayseri. Baybars himself went with a few troops to deal with the Mongol right flank that was pounding his left wing. Baybars ordered a force from the army from Hama to reinforce his left. The large Mamluk numbers were able to overwhelm the Mongol force, who instead of retreating dismounted from the horses. Some Mongols were able to escape and took up positions on the hills. Once they became surrounded, they once again dismounted and fought to the death. During the celebration of victory, Baybars said that, "How can I be happy? Before I had thought that I and my servants would defeat the Mongols, but my left wing was beaten by them. Only Allah helped us." The possibility of a new Mongol army convinced Baybars to return to Syria, since he was far away from his bases and supply line. As the Mamluk army returned to Syria, the commander of the Mamluk vanguard, Izz-al-Din Iberg al-Shaki, deserted to the Mongols. Bavain sent a letter to Baybars asking him to delay his departure. Baybars chastised him for not aiding him during the Battle of Elbistan. Baybars told him he was leaving for Shivas to mislead Pavain and the Mongols as to his true destination. Baybars also sent Taybars al-Waziri with a force to raid the Armenian town of al-Ramana, whose inhabitants had hidden the Mongols earlier. Death. Baybars died in Damascus on the 1st of July 1277. His demise has been the subject of some academic speculation. Many sources agree that he died from drinking poisoned kumis that was intended for someone else. Other accounts suggest that he may have died from a wound while campaigning, or from illness. He was buried in the Arizona Zahiriya Library in Damascus. Family. Baybars married several women and had 7 daughters and 3 sons. 2 of his sons, Al-Said Barakar and Solamash, became sultans. Assessment. As the first sultan of the Bahra Mamluk dynasty, Baybars made the meritocratic ascent up the ranks of Mamluk society. He took final control after the assassination of Sultan Saif al-Din Qutuz. But before he became sultan, he was the commander of the Mamluk forces in the most important battle of the Middle Periods, repelling a Mongol force at the legendary Battle of Ain Jalut in 1260. Although in the Muslim world he has been considered a national hero for centuries, and in Egypt, Syria and Kazakhstan is still regarded as such, Sultan Baybars was reviled in the Christian world of the time for his seemingly unending victorious campaigns. A Templar knight who fought in the 7th Crusade lamented, "Rage and sorrow are seated in my heart, so firmly that I scarce dare to stay alive. It seems that God wishes to support the Turks to our loss. Ah, Lord God, alas, the realm of the East has lost so much that it will never be able to rise up again. They will make a mosque of Holy Mary's convent, and since the theft pleases her son, who should weep at this, we are forced to comply as well. Anyone who wishes to fight the Turks is mad, for Jesus Christ does not fight them anymore. They have conquered, they will conquer, for every day they drive us down, knowing that God, who is awake, sleeps now, and Muhammad waxes powerful." Baybars also played an important role in bringing the Mongols to Islam. He developed strong ties with the Mongols of the Golden Horde and took steps for the Golden Horde Mongols to travel to Egypt. The arrival of the Mongols' Golden Horde to Egypt resulted in a significant number of Mongols accepting Islam. Legacy. Military legacy. Baybars was a popular ruler in the Muslim world who had defeated the Crusaders in 3 campaigns, and the Mongols in the Battle of Ain Jalut, which many scholars deem of great macro-historical importance. In order to support his military campaigns, Baybars commissioned arsenals, warships and cargo vessels. He was also arguably the first to employ explosive hand cannons in war at the Battle of Ain Jalut. His military campaign also extended into Libya and Nubia. Culture and science. He was also an efficient administrator who took interest in building various infrastructure projects, such as a mounted message relay system capable of delivery from Cairo to Damascus in 4 days. He also built bridges, irrigation and shipping canals, improved the harbors, and built mosques. He was also a patron of Islamic science, such as his support for the medical research by his Arab physician Ibn al-Nafis. As a testament of a special relationship between Islam and cats, Baybars left a cat garden in Cairo as a waqf, providing the cats of Cairo with food and shelter. Until this day, its legacy of domesticated cats in Cairo is still seen. His memoirs were recorded in Surat al-Zahir. Baybars, a popular Arabic romance recording his battles and achievements. He has a heroic status in Kazakhstan, as well as in Egypt and Syria. Al-Madrasa al-Zahiriya is the school built adjacent to his mausoleum in Damascus. The Arizona Zahiriya Library has a wealth of manuscripts in various branches of knowledge to this day. The library and mausoleum are being reconstructed by Kazakhstan government fund. In 2009, a copy of Sultan Baybars' mausoleum in Damascus was to be built in Kazakhstan. In fiction, Baybars figures prominently in the story The Sowers of the Thunder by Robert E. Howard. While liberties are taken with history for the sake of the tale, and many characters and events are purely imaginary, his character is fairly close to the folkloric depiction and the general flow of history is respected. Baybars is the main character of a novel, Yemshan, by Russian Kazakh writer Morris Simashko. Baybars is one of the main characters of Robin Young's books, Brethren and Crusade. Baybars is the main character of Jefferson Cooper's 1957 novel, The Swordsman. According to Harold Lamb, Iran of Baghdad in the Arabian Nights was really Baybars of Cairo. Baybars is one of the central characters in Lebanese-American author Rabi al-Amadin's The Hakawati. Baybars is one of the characters in The Children of the Grail books by Peter Burling. Sultan Baybars, movie shot in 1989 by Kazakh National Cinema Studio, Kazakh film, 1989. Kahira Kakaha, real biography of Sultan, written by historian Muazzam Javad Bukhari. Baybars is a central character in The Saracen novel by Robert Shea, 1989, historic fiction.